The dust storm had nearly torn his ship apart. Eli Walker, a human salvage pilot, had just made an emergency landing on the edge of a forgotten alien trade zone. He wrapped his jacket tighter, looking around at the shattered towers, rusted machines, and broken lights that flickered weakly in the wind. It was quiet here, too quiet. Only the sound of whistling dust and distant metallic creaks filled the air. He had landed here only for shelter, just a quick fix to the fuel regulator. But fate had other plans. As he checked the outer hull, a sound echoed behind him, a soft cry, weak and short. He turned quickly, hand on his tool blade, eyes sharp. From behind a fallen cargo pod, a figure emerged. She was alien, clearly, but not like the terrifying species he had read about. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing under the silver light of the moons. She was wearing tattered silk-like cloth that clung to her slim frame. Long white hair flowed behind her, tangled and full of dust. But it was her eyes that stopped Eli cold. Big, silver, and filled with fear. She fell to her knees, breathing hard, her hands covered in bruises. "Please, help me," she whispered, her voice soft and strange. Eli hesitated. His human brain screamed, "Don't trust her." But something deep inside told him otherwise. He walked forward, knelt beside her, and offered water from his flask. She drank it, slowly, like it was the first kindness she had felt in years. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Vela," she said. "They were hunting me." "Who?" But before she could answer, loud screeches echoed from the far end of the ruins. Eli saw shadowy figures, tall, thin, with sharp weapons, moving through the broken buildings. He grabbed Vela's hand without thinking. "Come on." They ran through the maze of twisted metal, ducking under fallen doors and leaping over broken pipes. Eli found a hidden spot near the side of his ship, a cracked supply hatch that led to a storage bay. He pulled her inside, closed the hatch, and waited, holding his breath. The hunters passed by, not noticing the hidden chamber. After what felt like hours, the area went silent again. Vela leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "You saved me," she whispered. "Now I must give you something." "You don't owe me anything," Eli replied. "I couldn't just leave you there." But she shook her head, her glowing eyes staring into his. "My people do not believe in random kindness. A life saved must be joined to the one who saved it." "What does that mean?" Vela slowly reached into the folds of her robes and took out a thin silver band. She held it out to him, her hands trembling. "This is our bonding ring," she said. "If you accept, I become your mate." Eli blinked, his heart nearly stopping. "Mate? Like marriage?" "Yes," she said simply. "It is law among the Thoraxi. You touched my hand, gave me water, risked your life to save me. In our way, that means more than 1,000 words." Eli stared at the ring, unsure if he should laugh or panic. "This is crazy," he said. "We just met." Vela looked down, sadness in her voice. "I understand, but I will be hunted again if I walk alone. If I am bonded to you, they cannot take me. They respect the old ways." Eli ran a hand through his dusty hair. He had only come to this planet for spare parts, and now he was being asked to marry an alien girl. A very beautiful alien girl, yes, but still, this was insane. Yet the way she looked at him, not with trickery, not with greed, but with a quiet, desperate hope. He realized she had no one else. She was alone in a dangerous world, and for some reason, she had chosen him. He reached out slowly and touched the ring. It glowed softly his hand then floated, wrapping itself around his wrist like liquid silver. Vela smiled, relief washing over her face. "Now we are joined," she said gently. "Do we have to do anything else?" Eli asked, trying to hide the nervous shake. In his voice, "Not yet," she whispered. "But you must meet my sisters." "Sisters," he repeated, confused. Vela's eyes shimmered with something strange, something unreadable. "They must know you too. They will come to you tonight." Eli's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, come to me?" But Vela didn't answer. She simply leaned against him and closed her eyes. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins. Inside the ship, Eli stared into the shadows, wondering what he had just agreed to, and who was coming next. The air on Vela's homeworld felt heavy, like something was always watching. Eli stood near the tall silver spires of her village, his heart pounding as strange music echoed from crystal drums and wind chimes made from bones and glass. Vela walked ahead of him, her steps slow, calm, but her eyes flicked around nervously. "Just stay close," she whispered. "Don't speak unless spoken to." Eli swallowed hard and nodded. He had no idea what to expect. He thought bonding meant a simple promise, a quiet ceremony, maybe some words in front of a fire. But what he saw now looked like a royal ritual. A wide platform stood at the center of the village, surrounded by glowing vines and floating lights. Dozens of tall, blue-skinned thoraxi stood in silence, watching him closely. Some held staffs carved from stardust wood. Others wore long robes stitched with gold thread. At the center of it all, 7 veiled women stood side by side. Still, as statues. Eli leaned toward Vela, whispering, "Who are they?" "My sisters," she said softly. "You will be joined to them too." "What?" His voice cracked. "I didn't agree to that." Vela looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "This is how it works, Eli. You saved me, but I am not just me. We are one unit, 7 souls in one bond. If you take me, you take all." He felt his knees go weak. This wasn't a wedding. It was a union, a full binding to 7 women he had never spoken to. The veils covering their faces made them seem like ghosts, and yet he could feel their eyes on him, studying him, judging him, perhaps even wanting him. A deep voice boomed from above as a tall elder stepped forward. "The human has accepted the bond. Let the sisters of Vela now complete the circle." Eli was led to the center of the platform. The 7 sisters surrounded him in a ring, forming a star-like pattern around his body. Vela stood across from him, her veil now removed, her silver eyes shining in the torchlight. One by one, the sisters stepped forward and placed their hands on his shoulders, chest, back, arms, and forehead. Each touch sent a small spark through his skin, gentle but strange. "This is the fusion of breath," said the elder, "the moment of link." Eli tried to breathe normally, but his heart was racing. He could smell their perfume, earthy, floral, and electric. He could hear their breath, synchronized, soft, like wind before a storm. Then something even stranger happened. His mind shifted. He saw flickers, visions that weren't his own. A river glowing under starlight, a room filled with laughter and dancing, a quiet scream in the middle of a storm. "Memories," whispered Vela. "We are showing you who we are." Stumbled backward, overwhelmed. "I didn't ask for this," he muttered. "This wasn't what I wanted." One of the sisters, taller than the rest, stepped forward and lowered her veil. Her face was angular, sharp, beautiful in a fierce way. "You think kindness has no price," she said, her voice like smoke. "You think saving one of us would not bind you to us all?" "I didn't know," Eli shouted, feeling trapped. Another sister lowered her veil, this one with softer eyes. "We will not harm you," she said gently. "But you are part of us now. You walked through the gate when you gave Vela water. You touched our bond the moment you held her hand." "I'm just a human," he said. "This is too much." Vela stepped forward, placing her hand on his chest. "I will not force you," she said quietly. "But if you leave now, our bond will break. We will suffer. Some of us may not survive." The music stopped, and silence fell like snow. Eli looked around at the crowd, at the glowing eyes watching from every corner. He felt like a deer surrounded by wolves, but these wolves wore silk and tears, not teeth and blood. And deep down, he knew the truth. He had changed something sacred. By stepping into their lives, he had started a chain reaction. The only question was, would he see it through? He looked at the 7 sisters. Some were still hidden behind their veils. Some had their faces bare, but all of them had one thing in common. Their eyes held pain and hope and fear, just like Vela's had on that day in the ruins. With a long breath, Eli whispered, "I don't understand your ways, but I won't run. Not tonight. The elder nodded. The bond is accepted, he said. The joining begins at first light. As the crowd began to cheer softly, the sisters walked forward, not just Vela, but all of them, and one by one, they placed their hands in Eli's. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew. He wouldn't sleep alone, not ever again. Eli didn't sleep much that night, even though his bed was soft, even though the room was warm and safe. His mind spun in circles, filled with strange visions and quiet voices that weren't his own. The sisters didn't stay in the room with him, but he could feel them. Their presence was like a whisper under his skin, like energy humming inside his bones. He sat up, looking at the silver walls that glowed faintly in the dark. Vela had said the binding would begin at first light. But what did that mean? What else could happen? Hadn't he already agreed to enough? The door slid open silently. Vela stepped in wearing a long robe that shimmered like flowing water. Her silver eyes were calm but serious. "It's time," she said. "The others are waiting." Eli stood, his heart heavy. He followed her down, a hallway lined with living lights that reacted to their steps. The floor pulsed gently with every movement, like the house was alive. They entered a large circular chamber, dimly lit by blue fire floating in glass bowls. The other 6 sisters stood in a perfect ring, each facing inward. None of them wore veils now. Eli looked at each of them slowly. Thera, the tallest, had cold eyes like ice, but a graceful stance, like a queen. Naira, wild and playful, smirked as if this was all a game to her. Xenia, the smallest, looked away shyly, her hands folded tight. Lyra had fire in her expression, strong and proud. Mira's gaze was soft, almost motherly. And then, there was Sari, who stared at him like she could read every secret in his soul. "This is the moment," Vela said softly, stepping into the circle with him. "The true binding. It is not just words, not just rings or rituals. It is the sharing of essence. Your thoughts, your emotions, your memories will link to ours and ours to yours." Eli took a step back. "You mean, like a mind link?" "Yes," said Thera, her voice sharp but steady. "You will become one of us, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. We will know you, Eli Walker, and you will know us. You cannot hide behind silence after this." Eli's throat went dry. This wasn't just marriage. This was transformation. He would no longer be just himself. He would be 7 selves. "What happens if I say no?" he asked. Lyra stepped forward. "Then the bond breaks and we all suffer. Some will grow weak. Some may never recover. Because we've already begun to connect. To pull away now would tear parts of us apart." "Why?" Eli said, shaking his head. "Why would your kind risk something like this with a stranger?" Mira spoke softly. "Because we don't choose with logic. Our bond forms when the heart feels safe. Vela's heart chose you. And when one chooses, all must follow. We are 7, always 7. We love as one, or not at all." Eli looked at Vela. Her face showed no fear, only trust. "You saved me," she said. "Not just from death, but from loneliness. And now you're a part of something bigger than you know." Eli closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. He had come here expecting a few spare parts and a way-off world. Instead, he had found a people with strange customs and stronger hearts than most humans he'd ever met. He opened his eyes and took a step forward. "I'll do it," he whispered. "But I want to remember who I am. I'll be part of you, but I'll still be me." Xenia stepped forward, her small voice clear. "Then show us who you are," Eli stepped into the center of the circle. The sisters raised their hands and soft threads of light began to flow from their fingertips. The threads touched his skin, his chest, his temples, and his back. They didn't burn, but they pierced. Not like knives, but like emotion. He saw flashes. A treehouse from his childhood. The day his dog died. The laughter of his first love. The moment he crash-landed and saw Vela for the first time. At the same time, new memories entered his mind. He saw Sari crying beside a frozen pond. Thera standing alone in a dark field. Watching stars vanish. Naira dancing in a rain of petals. Vela's hands tied behind her back as she was taken from her home. Tears rolled down Eli's face, not just from his pain, but from theirs. And suddenly he wasn't alone. He felt them around him. Not as strangers, not even just as women, but as souls. Each broken in their own way, each strong in their own way. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed. But the sisters knelt beside him, arms wrapping around him like a warm tide. "You are one of us now," they whispered together. "You are home." Eli had never lived with one woman. Now suddenly he lived with 7, and none of them were human. The house they gave him was more like a glowing temple than a home. Its walls breathed with light. Its floors were soft under his feet, and strange floating panels responded to his thoughts. It was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't peaceful. "Why are the towels always wet?" Eli shouted one morning. Thera passed by with her long silver hair dripping across the floor. "They dry better on my skin," she said without even turning. In the kitchen, Naira was spinning upside down on the ceiling, tossing fruit into her mouth like it was a game. "Eli, catch," she laughed, throwing a glowing blue orb at him. It hit his chest and burst open like jelly. He groaned and wiped his shirt. "Can't we have one normal breakfast?" Xenia peeked out from behind the kitchen door, holding a steaming mug with both hands. "I made human tea," she whispered. "Is that normal?" He took it, smiling weakly. "Close enough." Living with the 7 sisters was like being caught in a storm that never stopped. Some days were warm like summer. Other days were cold like ice. There were arguments over space, over food, over him, especially over him. Vela was quiet but possessive, always watching the others when they sat too close to Eli. Lara was bold, walking into his room without knocking. Thera pretended she didn't care but made sure no one got more of Eli's attention than she did. Mira left him small gifts, blankets, old books, handmade charms, without ever saying a word. And Nira, the wild one, climbed into his bed once, without asking. "Just warmth," she said innocently, curling up and closing her eyes. Eli had to sleep on the floor that night, heart pounding. There was no escape. Even the house obeyed them more than it did him. The doors opened when they wanted. The lights dimmed when they needed rest. Eli was a guest in his own home. And yet, despite the madness, something strange began to happen. He started adjusting. Their laughter became music to him. Their arguments became background noise like a loud family dinner. Their touch, once so strange, now felt familiar. When Sari walked past him one morning and casually brushed her fingers across his hand, it sent a chill down his spine. Not fear, but belonging. Still, the days weren't all peace and bonding. Jealousy, it turned out, was alive and strong in the Thoraxi culture, and the sisters had never shared a mate before. One evening, Eli sat by the glowing hearth, trying to read a book Vela had translated for him. Thera walked in, took the book, and sat beside him, her long legs crossing smoothly. "You shouldn't let Naira touch your hair," she said firmly. "It weakens the bond." "What bond?" Eli asked, confused. Thera narrowed her eyes. "The emotional line. Physical touch deepens it. If she gets too close, the others feel the pain." Eli sighed. "But I didn't ask for this. I didn't mean to make anyone jealous." "That doesn't matter now," she replied. "You're ours. We are one, but also 7. The next day, Naira and Lara nearly got into a fight over who got to sit beside him during dinner. Vela had to step in, raising her voice for the first time. "Sisters, do not fight for what is already shared," she said. But her voice trembled, and Eli knew. Deep down they were struggling. He couldn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling of the glowing room, wondering if he'd made a mistake. He had wanted connection. He had wanted love. But this felt like being pulled in 7 directions. Just then, a knock echoed softly at the door. He opened it and found Mira standing there with a quiet smile. She held out a bowl of warm soup and a blanket. "You haven't eaten," she said, "or rested." Eli stepped aside to let her in. She sat by his bed watching the stars outside the window. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "How do you all manage to live together, feel the same pain, the same joy, and not fall apart?" Mira looked down at her hands. "We don't always manage. Sometimes we hurt each other without meaning to, but we survive because we're stronger together than apart." Eli nodded slowly. That night he didn't sleep alone. Not because someone joined him in bed, but because he felt. Surrounded even in silence, the bond lived. Even in madness, there was something beautiful growing. The house was full. Too full, maybe. But his heart was starting to stretch just enough to hold all of them. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. It started with a simple meal. Eli had been trying to impress the sisters by cooking something from Earth. He managed to recreate a kind of stew using local roots, dried fruits, and a meat he thought resembled chicken. The smell was warm, comforting, like home. The sisters sat around the curved table watching him with curious smiles. "You made this?" asked Lyra, raising an eyebrow. "I tried," Eli said, chuckling. "No promises?" Xenia clapped quietly. "It smells like stars." Even Thera, who rarely showed emotion, gave a soft nod of approval. They all ate together, laughing, teasing him for how much spice he added. For once, it felt like a real family dinner. The tension of jealousy had faded, replaced by shared warmth, but that peace didn't last. That night, Eli woke up in pain. His stomach twisted like it was being crushed from the inside. Sweat poured down his face, and he fell to his knees, gasping. The lights in the room flickered, wildly as if sensing his panic. He crawled toward the door, barely able to speak. The world blurred, colors shifting, his breath short and sharp. His body went cold, then hot, then cold again. Suddenly, the door burst open. Thera stood there, eyes wide, her strong frame stiff with fear. "Eli," she shouted, rushing to him. "What happened? What did you eat?" He couldn't answer, just groaned and held his stomach. The sisters gathered quickly, Mira feeling his pulse, Sari placing a cool cloth on his forehead. Xenia sobbed in a corner, whispering, "He's breaking, he's breaking." It was the stew, Mira said, sniffing the air. "The root he used, it's poison to humans." "No," Vela said, her voice cracking. "No, he didn't know." "He could die," Lyra whispered. "And if he dies, the bond breaks." Thera finished, her voice hollow. "All of us will feel it." The room fell into chaos. Arguments broke out. Whose fault was it? Why didn't anyone warn him? Why wasn't he watched more closely? But one sister didn't speak. Thera knelt beside Eli, who was now drifting in and out of consciousness. She touched his forehead and closed her eyes. "I know what to do," she whispered, "but it will cost me." "What are you talking about?" Vela asked, stepping closer. Thera looked up slowly, her cold eyes softer than ever before. "I can pull the toxin from his blood, but it means sharing my life force. He'll live, but I will feel every ounce of his pain." "No," Vela said. "You can't." "You'd suffer for days," said Mira, shaking her head. But Thera didn't ask for permission. She placed both hands on Eli's chest, and her palms began to glow. His body jerked once, then fell still. The light spread across his skin like mist, sinking into his veins. Thera's face twisted in pain. Her lips tightened and her hands shook. Blood ran from her nose, but she didn't stop. Eli gasped suddenly, eyes flying open. He sucked in air, like a drowning man, then fell back into Thera's arms, breathing normally again. Silence filled the room. Everyone stared, unable to speak. Thera collapsed beside him, barely conscious. Her voice came out as a whisper. "He's safe." And then she fainted. Vela rushed to her, tears falling freely. "You fool," she whispered, brushing the hair from Thera's face. "You didn't have to." "She did," Mira said, holding Eli's hand. "Because she loves him. Just like we all do, in our own way." The sisters carried both of them to the resting chamber. Eli slept, for hours, maybe days, wrapped in soft healing fields. And beside him, Thera didn't move, but she breathed. And that was enough. When Eli finally woke, his vision was blurry. The first thing he saw was Thera lying beside him, pale and still. He reached for her hand, gripping it weakly. "She saved me," he whispered. Vela nodded, her voice quiet. "She gave you part of her life. Something no Thoraxi does unless the bond is true." Eli stared at Thera, once cold and distant, now soft and still. He had never asked for any of this, but in this moment he realized. He meant something to them, not as a tool, not as a duty, but as a heart they didn't want to lose. He leaned closer to Thera and whispered, "Thank you." Her eyes flickered open for just a second, and she smiled. That night, no one argued, no one fought, no one claimed him. They all sat together in quiet silence. 7 sisters, one human, one bond, now stronger than pain. Eli sat alone on the edge of the floating garden. The healing fields behind him shimmered with blue light, where Thera now rested peacefully. Her strength was returning slowly, but she still hadn't spoken much since saving him. The sisters had been quiet too, more careful, more distant, as if afraid to break something delicate between them. Eli stared into the stars, his hands resting in his lap. "I never asked for this," he whispered to the wind. "I just wanted to help one girl. Now I'm bound to 7 and one nearly died because of me." A shadow moved behind him, soft and quick. Nira stepped into the light, her wild hair pulled back. For once she wore a plain wrap, unlike her usual colorful clothes, but her eyes still held that spark. The same spark he saw the first time she threw fruit at his chest. "You're too quiet these days," she said, sitting beside him. "I thought humans liked to complain loudly." Eli didn't smile. "I almost killed one of you. Thera gave her life force for me. How am I supposed to feel?" Nira leaned back on her elbows, looking up at the stars. "You're supposed to feel confused, lost, maybe even angry." "I didn't ask for this bond," Eli said, his voice low. "I didn't agree to be anyone's mate, let alone 7. Nira nodded slowly, then looked him straight in the eyes. "Then come with me," she said, standing up. "I'll show you a way out." "What?" He blinked, surprised. "You're serious?" "I've been working on something," she whispered, her voice suddenly serious. "A hidden pod, a small flyer, stored under the mountain vines. It's not fast, but it can take you back to the outer belt. From there you can disappear. No more bonding, no more ancient rules." Eli stood up slowly, heart racing. "And you're helping me escape?" "Why?" Nira looked away, chewing her lip. "Because I care about you. I don't want you to be here if your heart is trapped, even if it means losing you." Her words hit him like cold wind. This was the same girl who laughed the loudest, played the hardest, acted like life was a game. Now she looked like someone carrying a heavy truth. She took his hand gently and led him through the garden. They walked past glowing vines, past sleeping birds with silver feathers, until they reached a hidden hatch covered in moss and crystal dust. Nira pulled it open and revealed a small shuttle, barely big enough for one. Its lights blinked faintly. Like it had been waiting, Eli stepped closer, staring at the controls. One press, one liftoff, and he'd be free. "No one else knows about this?" he asked. "No," Nira replied. "Only me." Eli looked back at her. She stood with her arms folded, but her eyes were wet. "You really want me to go?" She shook her head. "No, but I'd rather let you go than watch you suffer." Eli stared at the shuttle again. The thought of leaving was tempting. No more confusion, no more pain, no more rules he didn't understand. But then his mind filled with flashes. Xenia's quiet joy when he said thank you, Mira's kindness when she brought soup, Thera's sacrifice as she collapsed beside him, Vela's voice shaking when she defended him, Lyra's fire, Sari's calm, Nira's hidden sadness. They weren't just strangers anymore. They weren't just the sisters, they were pieces of something bigger, and now he was one of those pieces too. He turned back to Nira. "I can't leave," he said softly. "Not like this." Nira's lip trembled, and she laughed bitterly. "I knew you'd say that." She wiped her eyes, then pulled something from her pocket. a small stone glowing softly. She placed it in his hand. "It's a recall beacon," she whispered. "If you ever change your mind, activate it. It will bring the shuttle to you again. No one else will know." Eli closed his fingers around the stone. He stepped forward and hugged her gently. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me a choice." She hugged him back tightly, then pulled away and smirked. "Now go back before they notice we're both missing. Sorry, we'll probably send a search party." They walked back together under the stars, quiet side by side. No words needed. Later that night, Eli sat beside Thera again. She was still resting, but her hand moved slightly. He took it in his. For the first time, he felt steady. He didn't know what the future held, but now he knew this one thing. He wasn't trapped. He chose to stay, and sometimes that choice made all the difference. The morning sun rose slow and soft across the alien sky. It painted the mountains gold and lit up the crystal trees. Inside the house, Eli stood in front of the mirror, fixing the strange collar of his robe. It wasn't human clothing, but it had been stitched by Mira and Xenia together. It even had tiny human patterns embroidered near the shoulder. He smiled, touching the threads gently. Today was the first unity, a ceremony not of marriage, not of bonding, but of choosing. A chance to accept the bond fully, publicly, clearly, without force. Eli had spent the last week thinking about it. He had walked the high cliffs with Lara, sat under waterfalls with Sari, listened to old Thoraxi songs sung by Mira, laughed with Naira until he cried, watched Vela paint starlight on the walls, held Xenia's hand as she overcame her fear of the outside and helped Thera stand again after her recovery. Each sister had their own world inside them. Each had pain, joy, mystery, and beauty. And somehow, they had made space for him. He didn't feel like a stranger anymore. He didn't feel like a prisoner of tradition. He felt like family. The courtyard was filled with floating lanterns. Dozens of villagers watched from a respectful distance. The sisters stood in a circle, dressed in light woven from moon thread. Eli walked toward them, slow, steady, heartful. Vela stepped forward, speaking clearly. "Today, our bond becomes a choice, not bound by blood, not tied by rules, but offered freely." Each sister placed a stone in front of him, 7 stones, glowing softly. If Eli touched all 7, it meant he accepted the unity completely. If he touched less, the bond would break, and they would all walk away. No questions, no shame, just silence. Eli took a deep breath. He looked at each of them, really looked, and saw his story written in their faces. Vela, who risked everything to trust him. Thera, who gave her strength for him. Nira, who offered him freedom. Mira, who gave comfort without asking. Lyra, who challenged him but stood by him. Xenia, who feared the world but opened her heart. Sari, who guided him without a word. He stepped forward, touched the first stone. It pulsed warm, then the second, then the third. The crowd held its breath, so did the sisters. He touched the 4th, 5th, 6th, and finally, the 7th. A beam of soft white light burst from the stones, shooting into the sky. The bond was sealed, not by force but by love, not by tradition but by choice. The villagers cheered quietly, but the real celebration happened in the way Vela ran to him and hugged him tight, in the way Thera placed a hand on his shoulder, strong again, in how Naira whispered, "Told you you'd stay," in Xenia's tearful smile, in Sari's quiet nod, in Mira's warm hand in his, and in Lara's rare but real laugh echoing through the air. That night, they sat around the hearth, not as strangers, not as halves of a ritual, but as something new, a family not born from blood, but built from shared pain, shared healing, and slow, patient understanding. Eli cooked again, but this time with help. Xenia measured spices with serious eyes. Naira added too much fruit just to make him laugh. Thera tasted the broth first. Her approval meant everything. As they ate, stories were told, jokes were shared, and for the first time since he crash-landed on this strange world, Eli didn't feel lost. He felt found. Later, When he finally went to rest, he didn't lie in bed alone. The room was filled with soft voices, gentle laughter, and the peaceful rhythm of breathing. Some of the sisters curled beside him, others rested nearby, but all of them were with him. And his heart, once small, once scared, held them all. He closed his eyes with a smile, because he knew now, this wasn't the end of a journey, it was only the beginning. Not every story starts with love. Not every bond is chosen, but sometimes, the family that finds you is the one that heals you. And that night, under the alien stars, a human slept peacefully, wrapped in the warmth of 7 hearts, not as a visitor, but as one of them.